You can only add or subtract fractions that have the same number or value in the denominator. The top number in a fraction is called the numerator. The bottom number in a fraction is called the denominator. How can you remember the difference? The denominator is the longer word, and it tells you how many equal parts something has been divided into. That's the total number of parts that you could have to make a whole. On top, the numerator, the shorter word, tells you what portion of that total number of parts you have. 1 out of 2, 2 out of 5 parts, 5 out of 10 parts, 4 out of 10 parts, 9 out of 10 parts. If both fractions do not have the same denominator, you must find a common denominator first. So you convert both fractions to the common denominator, and then you add the numerators and keep the same common denominator. So let's look at the first example. 1/2 plus 2/5. These denominators are not the same, so I can't add them. If I was multiplying or dividing, it's not an issue if the denominators or numerators aren't the same. It's only a problem when we're adding or subtracting. The denominators must be the same value in order for me to add or subtract fractions. I need to find an equivalent fraction for 1/2 and an equivalent fraction for 2/5 that has the same denominator. The easiest way to do this is to take this number and multiply it to this denominator. 2 times 5 would be 10. So 5 times 2 would be 10. So I'm going to change the denominators to 10 in the denominator. Now, how do I do something like that? You just can't change something because you don't like it. In order for me to go from 2 to 10, I had to multiply 5. Therefore, I must do the same thing to the numerator. 1 times 5 is 5, and you know that 5 is half a 10. So the way you find an equivalent fraction is by multiplying the same number to the numerator as well as the denominator. When you do that, you are really multiplying the number 1 because anything over itself equals 1. So if I'm multiplying to 1/2 5 over 5, that'll give me 5 over 10. So I'm multiplying 5 over 5 to 1/2, which is the same as multiplying 1 to 1/2. So I'm changing the way 1/2 looks. I'm not changing the value. I'm not changing the amount. It's the same amount. I'm just changing the way it looks. So 1/2 becomes 5/10. What do I have to do to go from 2/5 to something with 10 in the denominator? I must multiply 2 to the 5 to get 10. If I'm going to do that to the denominator, I must do that to the numerator. So 2 times 2 is 4. So this equation becomes this equation with the same common denominator. Now that I have the same common denominator, I can write that here as my answer and add 5 plus 4, which equals 9. So 1/2 plus 2/5 equals 9/10. In the next example, I have a negative number and it's over 1. Anything over 1 is itself. So instead of writing -5, the whole number -5 plus 1/4, I need the -5 written as a fraction. So I must write it over 1. So -5 over 1 plus 1/4. But I still can't add this because the denominators are not the same. So I don't need to change both of these. I can change this one to a 4. In order for me to go from 1 to 4, I must multiply this by 4. Whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. So 1 times 4 equals 4, and -5 times 4 equals -20. I don't need to change this denominator now because I have 4 in the denominator of this one. So I can leave this one as is. So -20/4 plus 1 over 4. The denominators are the same, so I keep the same common denominator, 4. I am to add these fractions, so I add the numerators. Negative 20 plus 1 equals negative 19. This one is negative, this one is positive. We find the difference and keep the sign of the larger number. If you have difficulty working with negative numbers, please watch my video. Now, this is not in its simplest form. It's not wrong, it's just not in its simplest form. 4 goes into 19 4 whole times. That would be 16 fourths. So there are 3/4 left. Negative 19 fourths is equal to negative 4 3/4. If you need help with simplifying fractions, please look at my video. Let's look at this example with subtraction. 1/2 minus 1/3. The denominators are not the same. I'm going to multiply this fraction by this denominator, top and bottom. And I'm going to multiply this denominator, top and bottom, to this fraction. So in other words, I'm going to multiply this times this, which is 6. So I'm going to change the denominators here into 6. Look at this. 2 times 5, 10. 1 times 4, that's what I'm changing things into. 2 times 3, this is what I'm going to change it into, 6. So I put 6 in the denominator of both of these fractions. Now, how do I go from 2 to 6? I have to multiply by 3. So whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. So 1 times 3 is 3. Now, that's the same as 3 over 3. Multiplying 3 over 3 to 1/2. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 over 3 is the same as 1. So I'm really multiplying 1 to this fraction 1/2. I'm not changing the amount. I'm just changing the way it looks. So I've changed 1/2 into 3/6. And you know 3 is half of 6. Now I need to subtract 1/3, but I need 6 in the denominator. So to go from 3 to 6, I had to multiply by 2. So I must do the same thing I did to this denominator to this numerator. 1 times 2 is 2. So 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. Now I can subtract because the denominators are the same. I write the same common denominator here. Now I'm going to look at the numerators. 3 minus 2 equals 1. Our last example, 2/3 minus 3/4. Let's multiply these bottom numbers since these numbers are not the same. So 3 times 4 is 12. I'm going to change both of these denominators to 12. In order to go from 3 to 12, I must multiply by 4. Whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. So 2 times 4 is 8. What I'm really doing is multiplying 4 over 4, which is the same as 1, anything over itself. I'm multiplying 4 over 4 to the number 2 over 3. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. So 2/3 is equivalent to 8/12. Now I must subtract 3/4. I need 12 in the denominator. In order to go from 4 to 12, I must multiply by 3. Whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. So I must multiply 3 to the numerator. So what I'm doing is multiplying 3 times 3 and 4 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 3 is 12. 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. I have 12 in the denominator of both fractions. My answer, therefore, has 12 in the denominator. This is the common denominator. 8 minus 9. I am taking 9 away from 8. 8 minus 9 equals -1. I hope this lesson was helpful. Your comments help me make these lessons more effective. Have a great day. Bye-bye.